You're watching Wave 3 Television, Louisville.
This is WAVE-TV, Channel 3, Louisville. All right, good morning. It's Thursday, July 28th. I'm Ryan Halloran. Good morning. I'm Hugh Finn. That's a deal. What are headlines, please? In the headlines,
Now, from Louisville, Kentucky, this is Wave TV News Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Don Schroeder.
And I'm Christy Callahan. Tonight,
resist the temptation to dance up here, but we'll get a lot of nasty letters, at least one, if I were to do that. But
it's midday on Wave TV with Hugh Finn and Pia Cummings.
Wave TV News with Don Schroeder, Christy Callahan, Tom Wills, and Bob Dominy.
good evening. I'm Christy Callahan. Don Schroeder is off tonight.
Wave TV News with Loretta Harris, Rick Chambers, Craig Edwards, and Barry Katz.
Good evening, I'm Rick Chambers.
And I'm Loretta Harris.
Wave 3, Louisville. Now, Don Schroeder, Jackie Hayes, John Belsky's weather, and Bob Domany's sports. This is Wave 3 News Nightcast.
Tonight, fire trucks return to the site of today's chlorine leak at 41st and Algonquin in Louisville.
Wave TV 3, Louisville. Now, Loretta Harris, Craig Edwards weather, and Rick Van Hoos sports. This is Wave 3 News Nightcast.
Now, Wave 3 News.
Good evening, I'm Don Schroeder. Jackie is off tonight. In Brown County, Indiana this afternoon, a car slammed into one of the University of Kentucky football team buses.
good morning. Things have changed weather-wise. It's cool out this morning for a Wednesday, April the 10th, 1991. Glad to have you along on Wave 3 Sunrise. We are going to see the sunrise this morning. We're glad to have you with us. Hugh Finn will have all our news for.
Wave 3 News at 6 is closed caption for the hearing impaired. Winner of the Associated Press Award for Best Newscast. This is Wave 3 News at 6.
Recycle! We will recycle! Recycle!
Earth Day 1990, 20 years after this nation's first Earth Day celebration, it's a new push to be kind to the earth.
Working in the spirit of Wave Country. This is Wave 3 News at 6 for Tuesday, September 17th.
Working in the spirit of Wave Country. This is Wave 3 News at 6 for Sunday, August 9th.
Good evening.
You're watching Wave 3 News at 6 with Don Schroeder, Jackie Hayes, meteorologist John Belsky, and sports with Bob Dominy. Wave 3 News, working in the spirit of... You're watching Wave 3 News at 6 with Don Schroeder, Jackie Hayes, meteorologist John Belsky, and sports with Bob Dominy. Wave 3 News, working in the spirit of Wave Country. You're watching Wave 3 News at 6 with Carol Grady, Craig Edwards forecast, and sports with Bill Katz. Wave 3 News, working in the spirit of Wave Country.
Governor Brereton Jones is home tonight.
Wave 3, Louisville.
Easter services throughout the world and here at home.
We'll have that story. I'm Carol Grady. A tragic accident on I-65 and a dramatic rescue in the Arizona mountains.
This is Wave 3 News Nightcast for Sunday, March 31st.
This is Wave 3 News at 6 with Jim Mitchell, Jackie Hayes, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports. You're watching Wave 3 News at 6, working in the spirit of Wave Country. Wave 3 News Nightcast is closed captioned for the deaf and hearing impaired. This is Wave 3 News Nightcast with Jim Mitchell, Melanie Bullard, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports. Wave 3 News Nightcast is closed captioned for the deaf and hearing impaired. This is Wave 3 News Nightcast with Melanie Bullard, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports. You're watching Wave 3 News Nightcast, working in the spirit of Wave Country. From Kentucky's first television station, this is Wave 3 Sunrise with Hugh Finn, Karen Adams, and meteorologist Tom Wills.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. We'll make it a threesome here.
Yeah.
This is Wave 3, Louisville. From Kentucky's first television station, this is Wave 3 News Midday with Hugh Finn, Karen Adams, and meteorologist Tom Wills. Live from Wave 3 TV, where coverage comes first, this is Wave 3 First News with Jackie Hayes and meteorologist John Belsky.
The river is running high, and so are the hopes.
Is Wave 3, Louisville. From Kentucky's first television station, this is Wave 3 News at 6 with Alan Denton, Jackie Hayes, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports. Live from Wave 3 TV, where coverage comes first, this is Wave 3 News at 6 with Jackie Hayes, Alan Denton, meteorologist John Belsky, Bob Dominy Sports, and troubleshooter Nell Taylor. This is Wave 3, Louisville. From Kentucky's first television station, this is Wave 3 News Nightcast with Alan Denton, Melanie Bullard, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports.
State road crews are plowing out major interstates and highways, but we are still snowed under by Sunday night storm.
This is Wave 3, Louisville. From Kentucky's first television station, this is Wave 3 News Nightcast with Lisa Robinson, Greg Edwards Weather, and Bill Callis Sports.
After 2 years of disappointment from bad weather, the gray wave country skies burst with color as...
This is Wave 3, Louisville. From Kentucky's first television station, this is Wave 3 News Nightcast with Lisa Robinson, Craig Hoffman, Greg Edwards Weather, and Bill Callis Sports. From Kentucky's first television station, this is Wave 3 News Nightcast with Craig Hoffman, Greg Edwards Weather, and Sports with Bill Callis. This is a Wave 3 News special report.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Adams. Louisville firefighters are on the scene of a two-alarm blaze at the Brownsboro Road condominium.
From Storm Center 3, this is a Wave 3 News severe weather update.
I'm Tom Wilson, the Wave 3 Weather Center.
Live from Wave 3 News, where coverage comes first. This is Wave 3 News at 6 with Jackie Hayes, Scott Reynolds, meteorologist John Belsky, Bob Dominy Sports, and troubleshooter Nell Taylor.
There, she probably would have died right there.
From Wave 3 News, where coverage comes first. This is Wave 3 News at 6 with Craig Hoffman, Lori Lyle, Craig Edwards Weather, and Mike Hartnett Sports.
Tonight on Nightcast, get a sneak preview of Thunder over Louisville's star attraction.
We're on the scene as organizers make some last-minute adjustments.
Also at 11, what you need to know to get the most enjoyment out of the official kickoff to the Derby Festival. Good evening, I'm Julie Nelson. Angela Martinez is off tonight.
3 News, where coverage comes first. This is Wave 3 News Extra with Scott Reynolds, Angela Martinez, meteorologist John Belsky, and Sports Extra with Bob Dominy.
Christmas is one holiday tailor-made for giving.
This is Wave 3, Kentucky's first television station.
Tonight on Wave 3 News at 6, the holiday trade-off. Why some volunteers head to the hospital so workers can spend Christmas at home. Plus, it's home sweet home for some less fortunate families, counting their first holiday blessings and a house of their own. But up first tonight, a special holiday gift. A community opens its heart and wallet after a tragic Christmas Eve fire. That's our top story this Christmas night. Merry Christmas, everyone. I'm Cheryl Case.
You're watching Wave 3 News at 6 on Wave Country's news leader with Jackie Hayes, Scott Reynolds, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports.
On this holiday of peace and goodwill, we have a lot to be grateful for.
You're watching Wave 3 News at 11 on Wave Country's news leader with Scott Reynolds, Angela Martinez, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports.
You're watching Wave 3 News at 11 on Wave Country's news leader with Scott Reynolds, Angela Martinez, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports.
So you want to be a Hollywood star?
This is Wave 3, Kentucky's first television station.
Coming up tonight at 5:30 on a special edition of Wave 3 News.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Wave 3 News. I'm Craig Hoffman. Thanks for being with us.
Live from Wave 3 News, Wave Country's news leader. This is Wave 3 News at 5 with Jackie Hayes, meteorologist John Belsky, and HealthCast reporter Eldora Jackson. You're watching Wave 3 News at 6 on Wave Country's news leader with Jackie Hayes, Scott Reynolds, troubleshooter Julie Stewart, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports. Live from Kentuckiana's first television station, this is Wave 3 News at noon with Lori Lyle and meteorologist Tom Wills. Coverage, community, commitment. This is Wave 3 News at noon.
And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lori Lyle.
Live from Kentuckiana's first television station, this is Wave 3 News at 11 with Scott Reynolds, Cheryl Case, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports. Coverage, community, commitment. This is Wave 3 News at 11.
And good evening, and thanks for joining us.
Live from Kentuckiana's first television station, this is Wave 3 News with Scott Reynolds, Cheryl Case, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports. Coverage, community, commitment. This is Wave 3 News.
And good evening, everyone. We're going to have the latest election developments out of Florida.
Coverage, community, commitment. This is Wave 3 News at 6. You're watching Wave 3 News at 6 with Jackie Hayes, Scott Reynolds, meteorologist John Belsky, and Bob Dominy Sports. Coverage, community, commitment. This is Wave 3 News at 11.
It's the second time Jefferson County Corrections Officer Timothy Barnes has been tried for the death of inmate Adrian Reynolds.
Coverage, community, commitment. This is Wave 3 News at 11. You're watching Wave 3 News at 11 with Scott Reynolds, Dawn G, and the Wave 3 investigators, plus meteorologist John Belsky and Kent Taylor Sports. Investigating the problem, getting results. This is Wave 3 News at noon with more coverage, community, commitment.
Now on Wave 3 News at noon, new developments in an attack on a Wave 3 investigator. Police are now searching for the man involved.
And the FBI is expanding its investigation into a southern Indiana girl's murder.
Plus, some family-friendly changes are announced this morning for a downtown attraction. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lori Lyle.
And I'm Chris Parente.
Investigating the problem, getting results. This is Wave 3 News at 5:30 with more coverage, community, commitment.
Now on Wave 3 News at 5:30.
Investigating the problem, getting results. This is Wave 3 News at 5.
Now on Wave 3 News at 5.
Investigating the problem, getting results. This is Wave 3 News at 5:30.
I know it.
Investigating the problem, getting results. This is Wave 3 News at 11.
And thanks for being with us here at 11. I'm Janelle McDonald. Well, get ready to start your week with some messy, wet weather.
Investigating the problem, getting results. This is the weekend edition of Wave 3 News at 11 with Janelle McDonald, meteorologist Andy Weingarten, and Bob Dominy, sports. Plus live, late-breaking coverage from Air 3.
A dramatic rescue from an ice-covered river in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania was caught on tape today.
Investigating the problem, getting results. This is Wave 3 News at 5.
Good evening and thanks for joining us.
Wave 3 News at 5 starts now. Investigating the problem, getting results. This is Wave 3 News at 5:30.
Well, after just a beautiful weekend, we had another warm day today.
Investigating the problem, getting results. This is Wave 3 News at 7.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Scott Reynolds. Connie Leonard has the night off.
Investigating the problem, getting results. This is Wave 3 News at 7 with Scott Reynolds, Connie Leonard, and meteorologist Kevin Harned. Investigating the problem, getting results. This is Wave 3 News at 11.
Working for you. This is Wave 3 News at 11. Working for you. This is Wave 3 News at 11. Winner of an Emmy Award for Best Newscast. With Scott Reynolds, Dawn G, meteorologist Kevin Harned, and Kent Taylor, sports.
It is a tense situation that we've been following now for a couple of hours.
Working for you. This is Wave 3 News Sunrise.
Good morning and welcome to Sunrise.
Working for you. This is Wave 3 News at 5.
The three-day search along the Ohio River was
Working for you. This is Wave 3 News at 5:30 with Dawn G and Scott Reynolds and Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned. Working for you. This is Wave 3 News at 6. Working for you. This is Wave 3 News at 6 with Scott Reynolds and Janelle McDonald, Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned, and Kent Taylor, sports.
the case against a suspected serial killer moves more than 100 miles away today.
Working for you. This is Wave 3 News at 11.
And what the scariest part was it stopped as soon as it tore across the school.
Working for you. This is Wave 3 News at 11.
Marking 65 years as Kentucky's first television station, this is Wave 3 News.
begin, though, with that breaking news tonight. A shooting at an East End church has claimed the life of one man, sent another to the hospital.
This is a Wave 3 editorial with Vice President and General Manager Ken Selvaggi.
Television station covering Kentucky and Indiana. This is Wave 3 News.
Thanks for sticking with us here at 5:30.
65 years as the first television station covering Kentucky and Indiana. This is Wave 3 News.
Good evening and welcome to Wave 3 News at 6.
Live in high definition. This is Wave 3 News.
It's 6:30. I'm Scott Atkins. Welcome back to Wave 3 News Weekend Sunrise.
Live in high definition. This is Wave 3 News.
And right up the top on Wave 3 News at 5, severe weather has left one child badly hurt when a tree fell on top of him.
Live in high definition. This is Wave 3 News.
Where everybody looks at it being a proud act, we look at it as something we do every day.
Live in high definition. This is Wave 3 News.
Another University of Louisville sports team hopes to...
Now, streaming live on mobile. This is Wave 3 News at 5. Now, streaming live on mobile. This is Wave 3 News at 11. Honored with the Edward R. Murrow Award for Overall Excellence. You're watching Wave 3 News. With breaking news happening now, this is Wave 3 News.
We are beginning this morning with breaking news.
Expect more right now. You're watching Wave 3 News.
The preparations are in place, anticipating one of the biggest snow events here in years.
Expect more right now. You're watching Wave 3 News.
3 officers gone in just 24 hours.
With breaking news happening now, this is Wave 3 News.
That breaking news at 11, a pedestrian has been killed after a car hit him on Bardstown Road.
Hello, Wave Country. I'm John Ramsey, and welcome to the last Wave 3 Listen show of 2017.
Expect more right now. You're watching Wave 3 News.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us for Wave 3 News Sunrise here.
Expect more right now. You're watching Wave 3 News.
Tonight I ordered...
This broadcast is sponsored by Spectrum. You're watching Wave 3 News at 5. Scott Reynolds, Shannon Kogan, and Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harnett. Expect more right now. This broadcast is sponsored by your local area's Chevrolet dealers. You're watching Wave 3 News at 5. Scott Reynolds, Shannon Kogan, Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harnett. Expect more right now. With Alert Day coverage right now, this is Wave 3 News.
Yeah, it's an alert day right now with several school closings and delays at the bottom of your screen.
With breaking news happening now, this is Wave 3 News.
And this is breaking right now.
With breaking news happening now, this is Wave 3 News.
And breaking right now, just one day after Kentucky State Representative
celebrating 70 years. This is Wave 3 News.
Good morning, and thanks for waking up with us here on Wave 3 News Weekend Sunrise, 5 o'clock here on your Saturday morning.
More local now.
And it is a wonderful day today. It is Tuesday, but it's going to be a sunny and warm day.
Yes, things are changing. Spring break underway.
Celebrating 70 years. This is Wave 3 News.
The bourbon boom is bringing a new kind of boom to Bardstown in the form of hotels. A groundbreaking happening today for a new hotel.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News. More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
There's many crashes there.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
Do all of this now.
More local now. Kentucky and Southern Indiana's only local news happening now. This is Wave 3 News at 3.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for this first edition of Wave 3 News at 3.
With breaking news happening now, this is Wave 3 News.
Breaking right now. Heartbreaking video here showing Southern Indiana officers line up and salute one of their own.
With Alert Day coverage now, this is Wave 3 News.
Hey, thanks for waking up with...
Now, you're watching Wave 3 News Listens Live.
And it is a celebration.
With your host, John Ramsey.
And welcome into the Wednesday edition of Wave 3 Listens Live. It is Thanksgiving week, and if you live here in Louisville or in the state of Kentucky, you are thankful for bourbon.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
Good morning, Wave Country. It is 6 a.m. It is Friday, but this is a morning where you will be packing your umbrella.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
And thank you so much for joining us today. We have some fancy new graphics we're debuting today. Pretty cool.
Yeah, wait until you see the weather. It's going to be awesome.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
Repairs to I-65 south from downtown continue.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
Louisville is in the process of searching for a police chief while the department undergoes a top-to-bottom review, and a lot of discussion tonight about what that review should look like. This is Wave 3 News at 11. I'm John Bull. Shannon Kogan is off tonight.
Newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan for thepeople.com. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News at 3 with Shannon Kogan and Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned.
Day 5 of public impeachment hearings.
More local now with breaking news happening now. This is Wave 3 News.
New here at 7, panic after a shooting near a school in suburban Cincinnati.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Early Sunrise. We have all your headlines in a moment.
Sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. For the people, not the powerful. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News Sunrise with Lauren Jones, Brian Schlonsky, meteorologist Tawana Andrew, and traffic with Brian Good. More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Wave 3 News Midday. I'm Connie Leonard. Brian Schlonsky is off today.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News Midday with Brian Schlonsky and meteorologist Brian Good.
Building on our rich history in the community, celebrating the people and events that make this the great place we call home. Wave 3 presents Wave Country with Dawn G.
It is a great place, and we have an hour to share it with you.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. I'm Shannon Kogan.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News at 3 with Shannon Kogan and Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned.
Weeks after the election, the White House finally lifts its roadblocks.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News at 4.
An explosion in southern Indiana this morning.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. For the people, not the powerful. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News at 4 with Dawn G and Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned. More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
Cleanup continues at the U.S. Capitol after a violent mob launched an assault on democracy.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News at 5 with John Bull, Shannon Kogan, and Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned. More local now. This is Wave 3 News. This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News at 5:30 with John Bull, Connie Leonard, and Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned.
We're now exactly.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
A family loses a loved one.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News at 6 with John Bull, Shannon Kogan, Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned, and Sports Director Ken Taylor.
A second home for many in the Highlands.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
Another.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News at 7 with Dawn G, David Mattingly, and meteorologist Ryan Hoke.
Contact tracing is new to all of us.
More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
Many Americans will.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News at 7:30 with Dawn G, David Mattingly, and meteorologist Ryan Hoke. More local now. This is Wave 3 News.
Right now, a wall of rain advancing toward Wave Country, looking to roll in just as the sun rises. This could cause some issues as you're heading to work or travel for Thanksgiving. Thanks so much for joining us at 11. I'm Shannon Kogan.
I'm John Bolus.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. More local now. You're watching Wave 3 News at 11 with Shannon Kogan, John Bull, Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harnon, and Sports Director Ken Taylor. More local now with breaking news happening now. This is Wave 3 News. Alert Day coverage now. This is Wave 3 News.
Scattered storms and thunderstorms are here across Wave Country.
This Wave News update is sponsored by Oxmoor Auto Group.
Happy Wednesday, everyone.
This is Wave News Sunrise.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise here at 5 a.m.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. This is Wave News Sunrise.
Good morning, everyone. 12 minutes after 5 on this Wednesday, halfway through the work week. We're almost there, and obviously I need the break.
This is Wave News Midday.
Thanks for joining us here for Wave News Midday. I'm Brian Schlonsky.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan for thepeople.com. This is Wave News Midday.
Back with you now this midday.
Building on our rich history in the community, celebrating the people and events that make this the great place we call home. Wave presents Wave Country with Dawn G.
A big hello to you, Wave Country. I was like, had to ask everybody, is this Wednesday? It's Wednesday, right?
This is Wave News at 3.
Thunder over Louisville now just days away.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. This is Wave News at 3.
Police in Louisiana have arrested a man for allegedly killing a woman and then streaming the murder online.
This is Wave News at 4.
This little boy needs.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. This is Wave News at 4.
Monday, a federal judge struck down a government requirement.
This is Wave News at 4:30.
A reminder for parents in Jefferson County.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. This is Wave News at 4:30.
If you're driving through Clarksville,
this is Wave News at 5.
We're taking a look at new body camera video tonight.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. This is Wave News at 5.
Breaking right now.
This is Wave News at 5:30.
As thunder over Louisville is expected to bring in record numbers of.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. This is Wave News at 5:30.
For a second day, dramatic testimony from Hollywood star Johnny Depp during his $50 million defamation case.
This is Wave News at 6.
It happened way back on January 31st.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. This is Wave News at 6. This is Wave News at 7. This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. This is Wave News at 7.
a horse that looked like a top contender.
This is Wave News at 7:30.
thunder rolling into Louisville right now.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. This is Wave News at 7:30.
The Russian siege on Ukraine.
This is Wave News at 11.
Hardin County authorities have a suspect in custody tonight in connection to a Radcliffe woman's murder.
This newscast is sponsored by Morgan & Morgan. There's only one. This is Wave News at 11.
It's been a week since a tornado ripped through.
We have breaking news right now at 5.
This is Wave 3, the spirit of Wave Country.